little bit sycophantic. Like, it wants to tell you what you want to hear. You need to draw criticism out of it. If you want to be an AI company, you really go all in on AI, you need to reimagine your ways of working and your whole workflows to be much easier for AI to leverage it. Because there are some things that are very, very hard for AI, but very easy for people. Biggest thing that we've learned is that there's so much power in the off-the-shelf simple tools, particularly for small businesses. Whereas we were quite arrogant at the beginning. We thought a tool like ChatGPT is a great demo for the technology that sits behind it, the large language model, but you're going to have to like get a big team in. It's got to be all sorts of custom work to pipe things together. These off-the-shelf tools are so powerful, but most people don't know how to use them.
Darwin, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
We haven't had an AI topic for a little while, but before we get into AI and all the new things that's happening in our world, I'd love to take it back a little bit and tell us about your journey of where you've come from to where you are now.
I've always been a very curious tech tinkerer, always had a fascination. I think a lot of that I can also attribute with a lot of thanks to my mom. When we got our first home PC, like the mid-90s, she could tell that I was really curious about this. And she said, look, play with this computer, do whatever you want with it. If you break it, we'll just get it fixed. And I did. It was in the shop getting fixed so often. It was crazy, but she let me open it and like take it apart. But very different to a lot of the other kids, their parents, which was like, look, if you break the computer, you're not going to get to use it again. So I've always had this curiosity, had a couple of different things in my career with tech, with startups, with big corporates before finally launching my own business. I was really completely blown away by AI when ChatGPT came out, that it was a fantastic opportunity. And I also wanted to have some skin in the game and decided to start my own business and dive into being a first-time entrepreneur about 2 years ago. Starting Pathfinder, and very quickly we've grown to about 30 people and racked up a couple of awards, and it's just been an incredible journey as this technology has evolved.
Awesome. So tell us about Pathfinder. What is the problem that Pathfinder solves for clients?
Yeah, so it's about helping companies get actual results with AI. People are very overwhelmed. There's a whole journey that companies are going through at the moment, and individuals as well. So you start with unsure, then is this tech real? I think people were a bit burnt by the metaverse, so much hype. But now they realize it is real, and then you're overwhelmed because there's so much going on. But you're trying to get to this point where there's actual real value, like either you're feeling it or you're seeing it or you're able to measure it. And there's a couple of steps you need to go through to get that. And that's what we do. And it's a combination of enablement, so showing companies how to adopt and embrace this technology, but also execution, building custom solutions and things like that. We recently launched one of Australia's first voice agents in financial services with an insurance company called Honey Insurance. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that we just love. We just love the tech and going all in on it.
I'd love to get a bit of an understanding without getting too technical. Can you summarize sort of for the business owner that sort of knows about ChatGPT, they've heard about Copilot and all the models that are around there, for the layman's terms, that someone that was, say, asleep for the last 5 years, if you had to bring them up to speed, how would you quickly describe that so they understand the technology that they have at their disposal?
Think about it much more like a person than a technology. So if you've been asleep for the last 5 years and you woke up today, there'd be 3 assistants next to you. There'd be 3 new team members. And the first one would be a lower level type of graduate. They've done very, very well in their career at uni, they're top of their class, all of that. But you've got to give them quite a lot of instruction to get things done. But they have read kind of every book out there. They've read every research paper, but you can hand them a couple of documents. They're going to summarize it. You can ask them about a topic. They're going to be well-versed and be able to tell you about that. And that's your first assistant. The second assistant is what we call the thinker. The thinker is somebody who they've done everything that first grad type person has done, but they think a lot harder about a topic. So this is a very experienced PhD, MBA. They will think a couple of minutes before they answer. They also know how to code, and they also know how to run code. And so you can throw them a spreadsheet with 10,000 rows and 10 spreadsheets with all this information, and they're going to go figure out what is the right path forward for your business. They're going to compare things and hit back with all sorts of other ideas and options. And then your third one is what we call the creator. Now, the creator, this is somebody who's watched every single YouTube video in history, and they also know how to create videos. And you can ask them, can you create a video for me for a new soft drink can or something like that? And they're going to be able to grab little pixels from every single video that they've watched and start creating that ad for you. So the creator is really all about audio, video, marketing. And if you think of a small business owner in particular, these three people are going to be able to help you so much to do things you just couldn't do before. And the whole world is called generative AI, because they generate. It's creating new things. All AI in the past it didn't really create new content. It just created some signal on some things that you would hand it. It would tell you what to do, but it wouldn't create new things for you.
So you've worked on a lot of projects with Pathfinder with such a small journey in the AI and being an entrepreneur. It's still such a new business. You've had projects with Woolworths, Australia Post, and Engineers Australia, these large companies. What surprised you most about how businesses approach AI?
I think the actual biggest surprise was we were working with these massive brands, and I was speaking at a real estate conference, and one of the real estate agencies, they're an independent one, afterwards said, "Hey, can you come give some training for our team?" And I said, "Yep, no worries." And could we'll also just get like 2 check-in sessions with you. Now, they're an independent real estate company that has like 30, 40 people, and we weren't ever going to do anything complex with them because they don't have like tech teams and all these things. So we just train them on a couple tools. We train them on ChatGPT. We train them on a tool called Gamma to generate presentations, a tool called HeyGen to create like AI avatars and things like that. And then when we had the check-in with them 2 weeks later, they had done so much with those simple off-the-shelf tools. They'd refreshed all of their tenant handbooks to be in 7 different languages, and they'd turned it into like these awesome handouts with great graphics and images, using Gamma to do that. And they created a GPT in ChatGPT that allows you to just like put a bond exit condition report in there, and it'll read through it, and it would create the exit condition report email that they would send to the tenant. They took a lot of pride in that. Would create property listings in their brand format. But they'd also gotten the CEO that created an AI video replica of her.
Oh, wow.
And she gives property updates of what's happening in WA and the property market there at the end of each month in 7 different languages. And all that the marketing team has to do is update the text each month, and then she talks about what's happening. And the crazy thing about this is, by leaning into the fact that it was AI, instead of shying away from it, it just helped as well because everybody's curious. And so the biggest thing that we've learned is that there's so much power in the off-the-shelf simple tools, particularly for small businesses. Whereas we were quite arrogant at the beginning. We thought a tool like ChatGPT is a great demo for the technology that sits behind it, the large language model. But you're going to have to like get a big team in. It's got to be all sorts of custom work to pipe things together. But then more and more, we've just seen these off-the-shelf tools are so powerful, but most people don't know how to use them. And they're lacking a bit of inspiration and then capability, know what to use it for and how to use it. Those are the 2 big gaps, but there's so much power in these tools.
And I love the way you said that off the shelf, because one of the things that in an accounting firm, people ask me, "Oh, what are you doing with AI and technology and so on?" And for us, it's ChatGPT, Copilot, that generative AI that our staff use. But we're not a tech company. We're not going to go and take that tech and turn it into software. We're not software developers. We may hire companies like yourself to come in and do a little bit of that. And my comment was, well, I'm going to wait till there's amazing off-the-shelf products that's going to make our life better. Now, I don't know whether that is the right way to go, but there's so many ways that you can tap into that, but it's a bit of a minefield in the sense that which ones do you go with? So if you are looking, you've dived deep into ChatGPT and now you're like, okay, I love that, but I want to do videos, I want to do voice, I want to do the languages like that lady with the real estate agent. How do you unpack and find these off the shelf? Is there a website you go to? How do we go shopping for them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is there's probably tons of things that you're not doing within ChatGPT yet. So the first thing is get as much as you can out of a tool like ChatGPT. And if you don't know where to start, definitely start with ChatGPT. We often say it's a very tacky way of describing it, but we say it's the gateway drug into AI because it's so good at so many things. It is the broadest and most capable of the lot. Some of the other tools, they have their own strengths in that, but it is a great starting point. So first, get the most out of ChatGPT, and there's a couple of things to do that. First is know when to switch between different models. Most importantly, like live in the thinking models instead of just like the auto models or the instant ones. That'll make a huge difference. As soon as you're starting to venture into the world of things like video and audio and image, the Google Gemini suite is very good for that. OpenAI just released Sora 2 for video, which is also excellent. It's not available in Australia just yet, but Gemini is very good for video. You can guess why. It's because they have YouTube as a training data set, so that's why it's great and it's very fast. For audio, there's a product called 11 Labs that is brilliant at creating voice replicas. In fact, they're probably gold standard. Even some of the big podcasts in the world, like when Lex Friedman had the Ukrainian prime minister on, that voice translation was done with 11 Labs. So, the biggest podcast in the world, and this is a tool anybody can use. So I wish there was just one good website to go to see this, but it changes so often. But I think just stay with a couple of mainstream ones. Of course, you could just follow me on LinkedIn.
There you go.
Very, very honestly, we try to just sort out all the noise from what's important. Yeah.
Let's unpack a couple of those products. I really love the voice. I had a client come in the other day. They are sort of in that real estate agent area where they provide sort of safety checks for rental properties. So rental properties in Victoria and some of the other states are required to get a safety check on gas and electrical. So they do a lot of bookings. They might do anywhere between sort of 80 to 100 homes a day with all these electricians and plumbers driving around Victoria. So you can imagine there's bookings, and it's not always easy to get confirmations, and a human's going to make these phone calls. And the client had come in and he'd shown me this audio. It was the voice audio AI ringing a client and actually talking. Hi, Darwin, it's XYZ from this company. We've got an appointment with you today at 11 o'clock, but you haven't scheduled, you haven't confirmed. I'm ringing. And then the lady's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I had COVID. You really don't want to come in. And it nearly even interrupts her and goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I hope you're recovering well. There was empathy. And anyway, so I listened to this. Now, if you're really attuned to, the AI world, there's some things that you would have picked up that it was AI. But this lady had no idea. And that they had this conversation for about a minute and a half, and she would have had the best customer service. And she was like, the AI agent said at the end, I will email you with some new dates. All you need to do is follow the prompts. And she was like, thank you so much, and hung up. And my jaw dropped. And I'm like, wow. And we didn't go into the detail of the costs and so on, but I meet this client on a quarterly basis, sort of doing some strategy work. This was not on their radar 3 months prior, and they came in and solved that in 3 months. So it's just amazing what you can do. So to inspire some of our listeners, I'd love for you to tell me some of those stories that you've been involved in where the product not only changed the way businesses did things, but it actually took it to another level in whether it was customer service or even just better outcomes. Do you have examples you'd love to share?
Yeah, tons. So that's a great story. And voice is the next massive leap with AI. And I also think in some ways it's going to challenge modern work, particularly the open plan office. So at the moment, open plan is great. Well, I mean, yes, you get distracted. People are talking on the phone and things like that. But voice is so powerful now that you can imagine if you're just wanting to give instructions very quickly all the time, hey, can you quickly do this? Can you quickly do that? Being able to interact with voice with a computer is also going to be a huge thing. I think one of the big things as well is that's fascinating with AI is just how powerful it is with very little tech involvement. So you think of every other technology that anybody uses, it requires an enormous amount of work to get even base usefulness out of it at work. If you have a CRM, think of the amount of configuration that goes into it, all the settings and all of that. But a tool like ChatGPT, it can do everything from help you write like poetry or like a song for your kid's birthday party to like a full competitive analysis to helping brainstorm all sorts of new marketing campaigns. And all of that, you haven't had to do any work. You literally have just had to ask it. So I think that's why it's so incredible. In terms of stories, okay. We really think that often people make a bit of a mistake. I can see where people come from. So about 2 years ago, the models, of course, were not nearly as capable as they are now. So people tend to gravitate towards low-level productivity. So in your example there of the voice, up until recently, or still many people do this, instead of looking at, hey, let's completely change customer service, they're going, how can we make it a little bit more efficient? So how can I automatically create the email reply when a customer is asking me about scheduling a new date? Not how can I just get AI to do the whole interaction for me whilst elevating the whole customer experience, because many people want an instant experience and not have to be on hold and all of that. So we recommend people start first with using AI to brainstorm and make better decisions about what you're doing with your business. So one fantastic activity that we do with leadership teams is you can do this with ChatGPT or Copilot. You first ask it, can you interview me, help me understand my goals, priorities, KPIs, ambitions, that type of thing. Great, does a fantastic job. Very hot tip there. Can you interview me?
Yeah, I just picked up on that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Exactly. So make it easy for AI to know how to help you. Like tell it, I want you to interview me, to figure it out. Simple trick on that is say, ask me 5 questions before answering. So if I say, hey, I need to do a Christmas marketing campaign. Can you help me with ideas? But first say, ask me 5 questions before answering. Then it's going to say, what budget do you have? Is there a big theme of customer base that you're trying to address this year? Takes a lot of the prompting burden off of you, and you're just telling AI, just tell me what you need to know before you answer. But in that example of interview me, understand my goals, priorities, KPIs, etc., great, so it gets a good feeling for that. But the next thing is you ask it, and this is where Copilot is very powerful. You go to the researcher agent on Copilot, which has a deep research tool, but Copilot has access to your emails, calendar, Teams. You say, can you go through my last 2 years of email, calendar, Teams activity and tell me if my activity is reflecting my ambition, and give me 10 critical pieces of feedback of the things that I need to improve. Now, there is a very important tip there, right? Which is AI is a little bit sycophantic. Like it wants to tell you what you want to hear, and you need to draw criticism out of it. And so you have to tell it, tell me the 10 things I'm doing badly. Also, it's going to go soft on you because they're designed to be helpful user experiences. But we do this with leadership teams at the beginning of a session. And it takes about half an hour to run. And then later on in the session, as people's results are coming back, it's mind-blowing, right? Their jaws drop. When I did this the first time, it came back and it said the first thing it said was, you're operating like a high-performing project manager, not a business leader.
Wow.
It was, and it gave examples. And one of the and it gave these 10 things. One of the things it also said is you're not present. You're always multitasking, and it's cited because it has access to Teams chats transcripts. It cited that when I was in a meeting, I was having like 5 side conversations at the same time because of the timestamps. It was marrying all of these things up. So that's a great starting point. The second thing is, again, say to AI, particularly in voice mode, it's very good with this. Put your AirPods in, use ChatGPT, put it on voice mode, go for a walk, say, I know nothing about AI. Can you interview me and can we have a conversation? You help me understand AI and then help me find the top 5 ways to use AI within my business. If AI is so good, surely the number one thing it should be able to do is tell you how to use it. So that's what we do. In terms of those are great unlocks. A couple of other ones that are so helpful that everybody can use. For those of you who, particularly in B2B sales, B2B accounts, you can get a tool like Copilot to run a weekly account briefing task. Now, what this will do is it goes through all of your meetings for the week. It finds the attendees of each meeting. It then goes through and finds all your interactions with them in the past, does a full search of them online, checks their businesses out, tells you their competitors, everything. But for every meeting I go to with a client, I already have this full one-page white paper that I'd read for 5 minutes beforehand that tells me these are all the people that you're meeting, this is their background, this is the interactions, this is how they were introduced to the business. But there's some hot tips there as well. One is you say, who are the key decision makers that are not at this meeting? Who am I not talking to who I should be? And it's absolutely fascinating how it'll come back with the thing that these people are talking with you about. They're not actually the decision makers in that. These are the three people that. So leveling up your intelligence and capability is very important with that. And particularly if you have a very large account that's very strategic that you've worked with over the last, say, 3-4 years, it's fascinating just asking it, I want a full account briefing on this account. It'll go through all your emails, every person you've ever interacted there. It'll create a timeline because it has access to SharePoint and that information. It'll even map out the different contracts that you have with them. And so that type of thing I think is incredible for sales.
That is so cool. One of the things that I really can't get my head around, I've been using ChatGPT a lot and was probably really excited. Probably it was around Christmas time when it first got launched or to mainstream anyway. But one thing I'd really do struggle with is understanding the automation element to it. So you mentioned there with Copilot, you can get Copilot to send you an email. I feel like, is that RPA, is that robotics, is that something you write that does things without you prompting it that it can do all the time? How do we set up those things behind the scene where I can come to work and it's already read my emails, it sent me a summary? How do we code? Is it a code that you need to do? Or do I need to come in and just go, hey, ChatGPT, good morning, can you do, is it a conversation or can we do some automation behind the scenes? And are they different things? Is automation different?
For some of these things, you just need to wait a little bit because they keep adding more and more power within all of the platforms. So if you take a tool like ChatGPT as an example, at the beginning, one of its biggest criticisms was it's not up to date because it wasn't. And then the first tool that they added, and that's a very important term in AI with these large language models, is tool use, was web search. And so all of a sudden, it would recognize that you were asking, which footy team won last night? Recognize that's a timely question, and so it'll trigger a web search, come back with an answer. Where if you say what's sales best practice, that's timeless, and it doesn't need to do a web search for that. So that was something that was introduced like 6 months after the release. What's been introduced over the last 6 months is connectors. Now, there's a thing called MCP, Model Context Protocol. All you need to know about that is it's the USB-C port for AI. AI is very immature. We don't have protocol standards, interoperability, and MCP is the first step to that. Now, what does that mean? We now have a way where you could, if you had a CRM like HubSpot, they can publish their MCP, which means the other AI platforms can now be connected to HubSpot. And so that now in a tool like ChatGPT, you can connect HubSpot very easily into ChatGPT to reference that information. That's off the shelf. You don't need to pay for somebody to come do work for you. Then ChatGPT started releasing all their connectors into the Microsoft ecosystem. So now you have Outlook and all of that. So a lot of the things Copilot could only do in the past, now other platforms can do as well by accessing these things. The next evolution of this, so if you think of that, that's all that is up until now is context, right? So you're using the information to give an answer. The next step in the evolution is action, actually taking action. And this is now where you're sending an email, not just creating the email to be sent, and then you copy paste. You're actually sending the email, updating the record, all of that. That has just started. And it's possible now. It's in many platforms like Claude. There's a lot of action that it can take for you. You can even do something like can you send so-and-so an SMS about the song I'm currently listening to? It'll do this on a Mac desktop because it has a Spotify connector and these other things. So I think just you don't need additional work to do this. You might just need to wait a little bit to do that thing. But there's little things that when you stack them together, are very powerful. So for instance, ChatGPT has a feature called Tasks, as does Copilot. And all that it does is it runs a prompt at a particular time that you set. And so, great example is the weekly account briefing one, right? Or weekly meeting briefing. You just have it set so it goes on a Monday morning, goes through everything, sends it to you. But another cracker is do a monthly, weekly, whatever cadence means that you're actually going to read it, a competitive analysis agent. So this is a simple prompt where you list all your competitors, list the things you do, make it a meaty prompt. In fact, ask ChatGPT, I want to do this. Help me write a cracker prompt to do this. But go research my competitors, research relevant industry news, research these clients, blah, blah, blah. And I want to do this every second Friday. And so that you get fantastic, almost like a personalized comms expert has gone and done all the research and said, here's everything you need to know. Now you can see how when you stack these things together, a connector, right? How over time, automatically, I'm interacting with these people. Therefore, it's going to know that this is important to me at the moment, and it's going to be able to complete that prompt for me and do that automatically. And we're slowly starting to see those things happen. In fact, just 1 week ago, ChatGPT released a product called Pulse, ChatGPT Pulse. It's only available on the Pro subscription at the moment, which just means it'll be available in a couple of weeks elsewhere, but I've got it on my Pro subscription. It's awesome. So what it does is it takes how you've been interacting with ChatGPT, and every morning you get your pulse for the day. And I am so impressed by how good it is. So I was doing a whole lot of coding work on the weekend, learning a new thing, and it actually yesterday said, here's a vulnerability to be aware of in that type of code, that topic that you were looking at. So it wasn't something I was actively investigating, like one particular problem, but it thought it was noteworthy that to mention this to me, and it mentioned about 3-4 other things. I can even show you at the end.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it's really fascinating. So now it's all about starting to become more proactive.
I want to touch on agents. So I've listened to a couple of podcasts on AI, and the question was something like, oh, I've got the team to go and build me agents and build our agents. So I've got the first level of subscription, the one that you pay about $40 a month to, and you can get to build 40 agents or interact with an agent. Now, I've only just done one. I didn't know I had this feature, by the way, so I think I've missed a few 40. You get 40 a month from memory. But what does building an agent mean? Because I feel like it's like, oh, I get to build a robot that talks to me, and it's a bit like this thing. So can you talk us about what agents are? Is there a relevance to that, and how do we use agents? And for those that do pay, how can they leverage that?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now one unfortunate confusing thing is that there is no standard agreed definition of what an agent is, but there is generally a vibe of what an agent should be able to do. There is also some people have used, it's just great, it's an easy marketing tactic to use the term agent when it's not actually what we say an agent is. Now, an agent should be AI that, firstly, it's able to take action, it's able to be given a goal to work towards, and it has a level of autonomy in how to get there. Now, to give you a very real example of how I use just even agent mode within ChatGPT is to find and book parking when I do speaking.
Oh, so it does that. So it actually, okay, got it. Keep
It
going.
actually spins up a web browser, and you can see it'll do this, and it will go do a web search. It'll go find parking for me. It'll get all the way through till it has the actual payment page on, and then it's going to message me and say, can you jump on now? Put your credit card information in to book the parking. Now, it is a bit like watching a robot vacuum at the moment. Like, just don't do it because you're going to yell at it and be very frustrated because it like bumbles around, but it gets there eventually. Now, there's technical reasons why that is now and why in a year's time it'll be radically, radically different just in terms of how they're training that. So it needs to have some level of autonomy. Now, if you think of I didn't tell it exactly what parking providers I should go to or anything like that. It kind of figured it all out by itself. Now, then you have an agent in Copilot, which is, it's almost like a templated Copilot. If you're doing the same thing over and over and you're always writing this meaty prompt, you can just create an agent in Copilot that it could be your account briefing, right? So, whenever you meet a new client, these are the 6 things you look for. And instead of just saving this prompt somewhere and redoing it each time, you just create an account briefing agent, which is very easy to do. So you just create new agent. What's your instructions for the agent? Take your time, write a long one, test it, update it. But the other cool thing that an agent can do is you can point it to some files. So in the case of Copilot, with an agent, you can point it to a SharePoint folder, which is very powerful. So if you think of putting all of your existing customer contracts in a SharePoint folder, creating an agent that is my customer contract analyzer, and now I just need to, and you say in the instructions, you say, look, your purpose is to help me find information about customer contracts really quickly and easily. Now, all I have to do is, and you literally @mention the agent as if you're @mentioning somebody like on Twitter or whatever. So you @mention customer contract agent analyzer. What are the payment terms on Woolies? Enter, and it comes back. I didn't have to say anything else. I didn't have to say where to get it, whatever, because it's all the agent knows. So think of an agent as if it's a person.
So you're creating like a role. You're creating a person. You're putting like a fence around it. You're saying you are a marketing agent or a marketing director. This is all of our marketing collateral, our brand profile. So you're kind of putting a fence around that. And then when you want to talk about marketing specifically for your business, you would talk to that agent you've created rather than just a generative chat, just random.
Exactly. And that's definitely best practice. So if you think of, you could create one monster agent with thousands of instructions, but it's actually way better. So let's say you're in a highly regulated industry and one agent you'd want is a compliance agent. You just want a compliance agent. And all this compliance agent does is make sure that whatever you're doing adheres to whatever the regulation is. Now think of how important it is to have that agent separate from everything else, because you might have a marketing agent, which is all about your tone, your style, like your brand values, etc. Now, if you put all the regulations into that agent as well, you also then have a sales agent. And now whenever a regulation changes or whatever, you're having to update like a dozen different agents instead of updating one.
Yeah.
And then you just create it as a workflow. You say, so when we do a new marketing campaign, we use the marketing agent to help come up with a copy and all of that. But before we launch the campaign, we hand it to the compliance agent who makes sure that we're allowed to say everything we're saying. And then the teams that administer each of those agents, they should reflect the people that know those things. So your legal team should look after the compliance agent. Your marketers should look after the marketing agent. Your sales team should look after the sales agent and all of that. And now you can see how powerful that is, because if I'm a sales rep, and I'm inviting a group of clients to a Christmas party, and I want to do a really nice little invitation for them. The marketing team slammed. That sales rep can just use the marketing agent that the marketing team has made to quickly create some great copy to put in the email that uses all the language we use everywhere. And so you just see how the self-service amplifies.
Yeah, one of the things we're working on, which sort of really excited about at the firm, I'd love to get your tip on this, is we're rewriting a lot of our SOPs. We, about 2 years ago, did a digital transformation. We changed a lot of our tech stack, and all of our old SOPs were either outdated, weren't written, and so on. So we're actually using a software program as well as some ChatGPT stuff and generative AI. But what the whole goal is at the end is to have all of this in a SharePoint or a Notion sort of file, and then build a Copilot around it or an agent around it so that when people looking for something, rather than clicking buttons and going, okay, let me find how to do a tax return or how to, apply for leave, you can go at Alexander Spencer, how do we apply for leave? And it doesn't even need to give you the document. It can read it and tell you. So that's where we want to get it to. And is that so a good thing that I'm doing, or
It's definitely a great thing. And even with something like Notion, that has a connector that's available right now into ChatGPT. So you can enable that connector immediately, and it'll pull things from Notion for you.
Yeah.
So there's 2 steps. I think on that whole process you're going through, there's 2 steps. So one is all of these AI platforms have a deep research feature. Now, in the case of Copilot, it's on the left. It's called the researcher under agents. There's two special agents in Copilot. One's the researcher, the other's the analyst. The researcher is for like a lot of complex, like a lot of research uses a different model. And then the analyst is specifically for spreadsheet data. With ChatGPT, you just push the plus and it's deep research. So the first step is to run a deep research agent across all of your SOPs that exist today.
Love that.
So now the deep research will take up to half an hour to run, but you want it to take half an hour. This is an important activity that requires depth. And what it'll do is you can tell it, I'm at the beginning of my process. I want you to go through everything, write a list of all of the SOPs we have, consolidate them, tell me where they're overlapping, create some kind of structure for me, find duplicates, all of that. I know this is going to make you laugh because it's so trivial, but I think many people will get it. There's a Canva connector to ChatGPT, okay? And we do our marketing and presentations. We're a Canva shop over a PowerPoint shop. It just kind of looks better. And when the Canva connector was created, we asked a deep research agent to go through all of our Canva and to tell us, and honestly, the prompt was written like this. Can you go, because the file organization isn't great in there anyways, but can you go through all of our Canva documents, find where there's duplicates, naming convention, blah, blah, blah. And it went through 97 different documents and said, these are the ones that are duplicated. These are ones that are mislabeled, and actually came back and said, this is the structure that I propose. It's these 4 categories. But the great thing about that is it went through all of the canvas, not just the file names. And so even if it said untitled, it still went and figured out what it was. Do the same with your SOPs, and then it'll be able to come back and say, I propose you, at the moment you have 37 SOPs and these many formats and blah, blah, blah. I think you only need 6, and these are the categories, and this is how you break it down, and this is the standard terminology across these. So do that as step 1, is use it as to figure out the whole process. To like baseline and understand everything, and then step 2, use it to create the new variation of the SOPs so that the language is really nice, it's really standardized, things like that. Once you become a power user of these tools, unfortunately, you do end up using multiple tools. We find that Claude is a way better writer than the other tools, and it just writes nicer. They've put so much work into that. If you ever listen to any of their design team on a podcast or something like that, it's a real passion of theirs. So you may literally take all of that SOP ideas and instructions of how you want it structured in the future. So might have used ChatGPT for the research and the intellect, but you're going to use Claude now for the writing. The creator, that's the 3 buckets of the assistant thinker creator. You might use Claude for the writing. So you don't have to, but it's definitely an approach that you can do. Yeah.
It sounds like a whole new sort of degree or knowledge that we need to consume and learn. The way you talk about it, I feel like there needs to be like a university degree called Bachelor of AI, because maybe a year or 2 ago or even 3 years ago, I was like, you just figure it out yourself. But there's so much now, you could nearly create a course that people become qualified in. And there isn't such a thing, is there, right now? There's probably lots of training online and places you can go, but there isn't a formal way of being like I can go and do an accounting degree, or a lawyer does a law degree. There is nothing like that in this world yet, is there?
No, not the way it needs to be. It's also our understanding of this technology and how to interpret it and explain it and teach people it is shifting all the time. So I think we've also very recently realized that if you want to be an AI company, you want to really go all in on AI, you need to reimagine your ways of working and your whole workflows to be much easier for AI to leverage it. Because there are some things that are very, very hard for AI, but very easy for people, and vice versa. And the most classic example of this is PowerPoint text. So anybody who's tried to use ChatGPT or Copilot or anything to create a PowerPoint deck, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a shocker. Like, it's so bad. But why do we use PowerPoint? It's because it's easy. Like, it's really easy. Anybody can go and create a PowerPoint. AI is so good at creating code. And again, this is a feature that most people don't even know exists in a tool like ChatGPT with Canvas. Instead of creating, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation on a strategy for the next year, you can actually create it as a fully interactive visually freaking awesome dashboard within ChatGPT that you can share. And I showed this recently at the Australian Shareholders Association. We took an annual report for Woolies, and I said, look, I presented to them last year. I said, last year we went and showed you how you can analyze this and compare it against Coles and blah, blah, blah. But this year, why don't we actually create an entire simulation dashboard? And it came up with this beautiful dashboard that has all sorts of dials that you can interact with. It had a chart that showed potential returns and all these things. But in the past, had I asked it to, okay, great, can you now turn this into a PowerPoint presentation? It would have taken ages and produced an output. Now everybody would look at it and go, wow, that's ugly. And so we've also just realized, and even on the SAP example, so you take something like a flowchart. A flowchart, AI is actually really bad at creating, like these little boxes and things like that. But it's very good at creating the short code, so just kind of like an abbreviated set of instructions in a language called Mermaid, which is a JavaScript library for visualizing flowcharts. And so you get AI to create the little instructions for another tool to visualize it. And so yeah, it's just fascinating how all these things are working. But to sum this all up, I think there's three things you do need to think about. So the first is mindset. Definitely like what is possible with AI? Like how are we going to experiment? How are we going to learn all of that? The second is skill set. Now you need to actually learn to become a power user. Like this is a technology that rewards being a power user. You have to become a power user in order to leverage it. And then the third one is tool set. Like what tools do we use? And it is tools, it's plural, definitely. To get the most, you are going to have to use a few.
Now, I've got two young children, a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old at home. And traditionally, you teach them maths, you teach them some life skills, you try to teach them some manners. What are the things I need to teach my 13-year-old? Some of these things, and embracing AI, embracing how to write good prompts and so on. What should we do to encourage the youth so that they're not left behind? Because I still wonder, whether being a lawyer or being even a doctor in 10, 15, 20 years' time, is he going to be around? What should we encourage our youth to be doing, or the really young ones, for the parents out there that have got young kids?
Yeah, I think the first thing is use AI as a teaching tool for kids, as a learning tool. And that's why one of the reasons why I'm so massively optimistic about this technology is usually when I do a keynote, one of the first pictures that I bring up is a photo that I took a couple of weeks ago, actually, of my son on a Saturday morning. My son's 10. We're having lunch at a coffee shop, and he asked me to help him with long division because he's a bit of a geek, and I couldn't do long division back then, let alone now. and he could kind of tell I was struggling, and he ended up asking, can I just use your phone for ChatGPT? And then I gave him my phone, and then managed to get this brilliant, beautiful photo of him actually there, writing in his 10-year-old handwriting with ChatGPT next to him. And then I went and looked at ChatGPT afterwards and the prompt he used, and he said, long division for a 10-year-old. And the context there is unreal. If you say for a 10-year-old, for an 8-year-old who has English as a second language, whatever it is. So every kid having an infinitely patient tutor, mentor, teacher that goes at your pace, it's available 24/7, basically for free, I think is one of the most remarkable things. And so you think of how education is today, it's created to teach classrooms of 30 people at a time the same thing, to get everybody going at the same speed. You don't need that anymore because every person can have their own teacher that can help them 24/7. So that needs to be rethought. So that's one thing that I would do is use AI to help your kids, because so many of us can also relate to being able to pay attention for the first 30 seconds of class.
Yeah.
And then you're on another planet, the rest. And even if it was for the next 5 minutes, you're on another planet. As soon as you try to hop back on that train, it had gone. So really encourage that. I do think there's a whole big shift required in education, and I don't know if it's going to happen in time. So I think use this technology to encourage entrepreneurship, to encourage all sorts of risk taking and things like that, because you'll be able to get a business, you'll be able to get a website up and running, like legal contracts, accounting advice, etc. These things were barriers in the past. They're no longer going to be barriers. So that's where I would start.
I love that. And thank you so much for that advice. I've already thinking about how we can implement some of those things at home. We've nearly run out of time, and I can talk about AI for days. So I'm going to get you back on if that's okay, Darwin. But I want to go back to Pathfinder. AFR has this amazing list which sort of rewards the most innovative companies. You were on the list last year, and you've got a bit of an announcement. There's something that's happened again?
Yeah, so it's so cool. We're fortunate enough to be on the list again, and it is a fascinating story. And it's just a reflection of how fast this space is moving. So by the time we got given the award last year, we'd stopped using the very tool that we're given the award
Amazing.
for. So last year we got the award. We built a tool that basically automates a lot of consulting work with AI powered, right? So instead of us having to spend heaps of time with you to figure out how to implement AI in your company, this tool would basically take all the work away for us. But then ChatGPT released reasoning models, the O series. And these are the thinking models, the ones that think before they answer. And all of a sudden, you didn't need that anymore. You could just prompt it. And it just reflected how fast this space is moving, that literally you can get an award for something and then not even need it anymore. And so we pivoted our whole business to going, why don't we just teach people how to use AI to learn how to use AI? And it really became enablers and empowers of people this technology, and as at least as a starting point. After that, you can do custom stuff. But that's it's been a great journey.
Amazing. I want to say thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line. It's been an amazing conversation. We've had AI discussions in the past, but this has brought a real new, fresh approach to it. So I really love that. And for our listeners, I know they're going to get a lot out of this. And so keep up the great work. I'd love to see what's next in a year's time and what's happening in AI. So definitely going to get you back. You are going to be the AI expert for us on The Bottom Line, if you don't mind. You did say you loved Camberwell, so we're going to bring you back here and have the great coffee that we've got. But again, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd love to come back. And also we're massive optimists and want people to leverage this technology. We put on a free webinar every month. It's packed with value. Just go to startlearning.ai. You're going to get a free invitation. Bring your whole team. You're going to learn everything you heard about today.
Awesome. And we'll put in the show notes all of your profiles. Check out Darwin on LinkedIn and follow his journey.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.